Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Salazar, Secretary Salazar, for joining us today. We appreciate this opportunity. I want to begin by letting you know my concerns about the FY12 budget as it relates to domestic energy production. I think we need to do more there. I appreciate the efforts that are being put forth to promote wind energy in the Mid-Atlantic. I think that's a critical part of this. But I also want to offer that I hope that you re-examine the cancellation of leases off of Virginia for oil and gas. I think those are critical. I know Virginia stands ready, willing, and able to assist in making sure that we do all we can to get that energy production going off of our coast. I want to talk a little bit about the Chesapeake Bay executive order. As you know, the President signed that last year, and that is an effort to restore habitat within the Chesapeake Bay. And I wanted to ask a couple of questions there. One is where is the Department of Interior currently in that implementing that particular executive order, and can you talk about the critical programs in your FY12 budget recommendation that would enhance the implementation of the President's executive order? And I want to piggyback a little bit on that, talking about the North American Wetlands Conservation Act funding. As you know, that's also a critical element of preserving habitat for our migratory bird populations, and that does have a specific economic impact. Those wildlife-related recreation in those areas generates about $120 billion a year and about 4,000 jobs, many of those in rural areas. And in my district and throughout the state of Virginia, those are critical elements of what we are dealing with. And as an avid waterfowl hunter and a member of the Migratory Bird Conservation Commission, we all know how important those dollars are. And I wanted to get you to comment about why these North American Wetlands Conservation Act funding dollars are important, and how is the funding there at that level leveraged with private dollars in order to set some of these lands aside and preserve these critical habitats, both through purchase but also more predominantly these days with conservation easement purchases.
Congressman Wittman, let me first thank you for your service on the Commission, along with Senator Thad Cochran and now Senator Pryor and others who serve on that commission from the states, as well as the Department of Interior. And let me say first, on the Chesapeake Bay, there is a significant amount of money, I think $33.6 million, that is proposed in the President's budget for the Chesapeake. We do view as an administration the Chesapeake Bay as being one of those landscapes of national significance for the country. We know there's a lot of work that needs to be done there. The National Park Service and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service are working closely with Virginia, with local communities, to try to identify how we can be helpful in terms of the restoration of the Chesapeake. It'll remain a high priority for us. And finally, what I would just say to you, I think in terms of the NAWQA funding, I think it is a great example of the kind of conservation effort that we need to embark upon, and it's what underlies the America's Great Outdoors and underpins the Land and Water Conservation Fund. And you sitting with me in those committees often over the last 2 years have seen how much it is that we're able to leverage for wetlands, which are totally supported by the hunters and anglers of America and conservationists, because there is a shortage of money. And so when we're able to put out a little bit of money through the NAWQA funding, we're able to triple or quadruple the amount of money that comes in from Ducks Unlimited and Trout Unlimited and state governments and so many others to really do a lot for conservation. So I think it's a good template.
Thank you. I think that's a great example of how we can take that source of income there, and as you said, leverage it in some pretty powerful ways, and with partners who not only by themselves promote those efforts, but in conjunction with the government are out there making sure that we're preserving those critical habitats. Let me ask a little bit about the Land and Water Conservation Fund. The FY12 budget request obviously enhances some of that, but I wanted to get your thoughts on how those efforts are going to provide continued outdoor recreational activity access to folks, and specifically in districts like mine where those activities are a critical part of the economies of many areas here in the United States. I just want to get your thoughts about how those dollars are there to promote and to enhance those activities.
You know, Congressman Wittman, what we will do is to work very closely, obviously, with the states and with local governments and non-governmental organizations to identify those places that are the economic generators of our communities in terms of outdoor recreations, whether those are urban parks and communities in Virginia, or whether it's the protection and restoration of wetlands, which are important for hunters and for anglers. But that's where that money would go. The amount really that is needed for doing what would be an appropriate job for Land and Water Conservation Fund is in the billions of dollars. And indeed, I think some estimates are somewhere between $5 and $10 billion. And so the amount that we have requested here, $900 million, which is essentially what is authorized under the law, I think is a good investment relative to moving the economics around. As I said earlier, when we think about it, it is 6.5 million jobs that are just created through the outdoor recreational activities, and this is according to the Outdoor Recreation Foundation.
The time of the gentleman has expired.